Hello everyone and welcome to V8 Online's coverage of the Monday Night V8 Supercar Official Series. Tonight is the penultimate round of this Season 2 Championship, and normally in these introductions I would try and give everyone watching a sentence or two describing what challenges the drivers will face. However, tonight for round number 11, that challenge can be described perfectly in just 2 words: Mount Panorama. I'm Bo Albert, and joining me in the commentary booth as always is Zach Hanlon and Jay Kennedy providing the cameras. And Zach, this is the one race on the calendar that every single driver wants to have a shot at the win, but to do so tonight they face 28 laps, 2 pit stops, and the highest number of drivers registered all season long, which means an incredibly large strength of field size.
Yeah, there's a fantastic field of drivers out there this evening. A lot of big names from a lot of big teams all throughout Australia. And I mean, as you said, this is one of the bigger races throughout the year that you really want to make sure you have ticked off on your list as a victory. And there are a lot of people here who are capable of doing that tonight. We've got Marlon McMarlin, who's in the lead of the championship at the moment. You got people like Emily Jones, who are very quick, Jake Burton, who's come in. Wayne Burke is always someone who you want to keep an eye on. Even Brady Myers, who was looking very good last week, and Luke Harvey. I mean, these are all people who could easily be standing on the top step of the podium tonight. And going to be a long, grueling race, about an hour for this one. So they're going to have to work for it. But someone's going to be standing up there, and they'll be very happy when they do so, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the driver at the moment that's put themselves to the top of the timesheets is Marlon McMullen, who has a championship potentially to win. But if he's going to do it, he has to get past Brady Myers, who pips him to the top spot by 4.5 tenths of a second. A fantastic job from Brady Myers, who came so close to a victory last week, but unfortunately the tyres just weren't there for him in the closing laps. He wants redemption. Bathurst could be the perfect place to do it. Drivers working their second laps in qualifying at the moment, and there are so many walls you can get a little 0x around this circuit, and it is so vital to make sure that you are in the first few rows of the grid to have any shot at a victory here today. But qualifying is such a ball game between risk and reward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will probably be going out with that first lap and playing it a little cautious, just making sure that they actually get a time up on the board so they're not starting from the very back of the field, and maybe they'll really go for it on their second lap. Because as you said, one minor contact with this wall, even though it doesn't seem like a big deal, does get rid of your qualifying time. That's just an algorithm put in by iRacing so that you can't, wall ride or cheat or do anything bizarre to make sure that you're starting at the front of the grid. Luke Harvey now coming down Conrod Straight. He's looked pretty neat and tidy over the top of the hill there. And these cars are very, very quick in a straight line as well. 650 horsepower from those big V8s in the front. Going to see them getting up to about 290 kilometers an hour as they're coming through the chase. So very, very high speeds down here. And down Conrod is going to be definitely one of the overtaking opportunities that we're going to be looking at tonight. But it's not the only place you can have a go down here.
No, not at all. Turn 2 can be a fantastic overtaking opportunity as well. And also down into turn number 1, if you get a great run out of the final corner, you can get yourself up a lot of spots, as Talyancic and Harvey both get themselves up a lot of spots on the grid order. And a few drivers have quite a fair bit of pressure on their second laps at the moment. Emily Jones down in 18th, we would expect her to be a lot higher. Brenton Hobson down in P number 20, and Jake Burton, who makes his way down the S's now, firing towards Forest Elbow, did not get a lap registered on his very first lap, Zach. So Jake Burton, who is going to be a real favourite for this race win here tonight, is under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, he's got a bit of damage to the driver's side quarter panel of that car, which would suggest that he's probably had a tiny little contact like we were talking about just before, which would have nullified his first lap time. So he's now coming through the chase as he gets up to about 286 there, late and hard on the brakes. As he comes down through the gears, takes a nice little bit of curb through there and runs a little wide on the exit. I don't know if that's enough to get him an off track. We'll see as he comes around the final corner if he's going to have anything to put up on that board, and he does. A 203.8. So that's going to put him up into third spot, which is definitely within firing range of winning the race. And yeah, very lucky, or not lucky. He's obviously used a bit of his skill to get that in there, but Lucky he actually got a time on the board for sure, but looks like Brady Myers has taken this one out with only 10 seconds on the clock left. But yeah, the grid's looking a little more spaced out than we would usually see, Bo.
Yeah, a lot of surprises at the end of the day because Brenton Hobson finds himself down in P number 22, but at the top of the timesheets, not starting in P22, is Brady Myers, who takes out pole position for what I think might actually be the second week in a row. So great job for Brady Myers. McMullen will join him on the front row of the grid with Jake Burton, Thomas McMillan, and Michael Taliancic completing the top 5 on the grid. Luke Harvey, Brett Loxton, and Corey Preston will hope to have good runs from 6th, 7th, and 8th, respectively, with the 5th row of the grid being consisted of Cooper Webster and Kurt Stenberg.
Wayne Burke's going to have a little bit of work to do out of position number 11. He's joined on that row by Lee Ellis for position number 12. Thomas Hinz is going to start from 13th alongside Scott Larnack in 14th position. Emily Jones going to have to work her way through the field from 15th alongside Leon Tander for 16th position. Steve Jansen in 17th with Michael Evdoka in 18th position. Dominic Savicki starts out of 19th, joined by Dred Sharp, finishing out that last top 20 spot. And the rest of our field, Andrew Zackerson, Brenton Hobson, who should be finishing around 6th tonight, Brenton Jackson and Tim Weston will round out our 24-car grid. So, yeah, it's going to be a very long, trying race for these ladies and gentlemen, but all about just making sure you keep off those walls and keep the pace up and make it to both of those pit stops. We think that they shouldn't be needing more than about 10 laps per stint. So we're probably going to be expecting pit stops around lap 9 and 10, and then again at around laps 18, 19, or 20 for the second stop as well. But definitely going to be a great race here tonight at Bathurst.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of tonight's result could be decided in turn number 1 as the engine notes begin to rise on 24 V8 supercars getting ready for 28 laps here at Mount Panorama, and it's green lights and we are off for 28 laps. It's a great start from Brady Myers, who will hold the race lead into turn number 1. McMullen on the outside will go single file and slot in. All clean for our top few runners. Not clean for Corey Preston. Finds himself in the gravel and dropping a bunch of spots. A disaster for Corey Preston. Does rejoin safely. No damage though, so he will be able to continue his way on to turn number 2, which is a very hard braking zone. And you can see a few drivers with overlaps, including Jake Burton, who is trying to make something happen with Thomas Hinz on the outside, and he will get that job done on Hinsey, although Hinsey tries to hold around the outside, gets pushed out a little bit wide, which does open the door for Scott Larnack as well. So not ideal for Thomas Hinz on this opening lap, but now into the cutting, a very tightening section where any little mistake, a locked brake, could cost you even more positions. But fortunately, Zach, 24 V8 supercars just about get through the first lap, or half a lap clean.
Everyone's done a pretty good job to get through. I think a lot of these drivers have probably done this race once or twice before, and they know how important it is to make sure that everyone gets through nice and cleanly on this first lap. And it's very, very important to make sure that they're keeping up the consistency. Just going to have a look at 2nd and 3rd position with 4th tucked in there very closely as well. Marlon McMullen coming under a little bit of pressure from Jake Burton. Jake also receiving a little bit of pressure there from Thomas McMillan, who's got Luke Harvey right behind him. And this is where we'll start to see possibly some moves coming out. Down Conrod Straight and into the chase. Has anyone got a good run? McMillan's not looking too bad on the back of Burton. He might be able to try and chuck it up the inside into here. He's not quite got it, and Jake Burton going very deep under brakes there, almost getting into the back of McMullen, and now McMillan has a bit of overspeed coming out of that corner there. He's going to try and go around the outside. Jake Burton says, I don't think so, and they're going to follow each other through the final quarter. Nice little battle though, and I don't see that one dying off any quickly.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an incident just down at the chase, and it's still going on to the final corner. We'll quickly wait and see if it does sort itself out. 2 wheels for the 19 car of Tim Weston, just about gets away with it. And unfortunately, it looks like the Penrite Oils car is going to drop back a bunch of spots as well. But all of this fighting, which we now see headed to turn number 1, Hopper's in the wall. His day is potentially done. Big damage starting down the back always has the risk of having big consequences, and Brenton Hobson has found that out the hard way, but it was drama all the way back from the chase, unfortunately. And we'll have to wait and see how that goes, but we also have even more drama happening on the circuit because Marlon McMullen has also lost a bunch of spots now. It's not been a good time for McMullen. I'll just scroll back a little bit to see what happens there. It was down the mountain straight there, and he's just let off the gas just a little bit to, well, actually, no, he got passed by Jake Burton, but he did not manage to get it hooked up into turn 2 at all. Run wide and open the door for the driver of Thomas McMillan to get through as well. So it was clean on lap number 1, Zach, but lap number 2 is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, it's starting to spice up a little bit. Good job from McMillan there to use that opportunity that Jake opened up for him to sneak through. And Marlon is now going to have all the work to do. And he's also got a very, very long train of angry V8 supercars going all the way down to, I mean, in fact, that train doesn't really stop until about 20th position almost. It is very, very tight here. And I think that comes down to the experience of all of our drivers here. I don't think that there are many tracks that would get as much use in a V8 supercar as this one. We're just going to head up to Thomas McMillan now as he's having a bit of a go on Jake Burton into the chase there, and not quite able to do it this time round, but he looks like he's got some speed in that car and he's not afraid to use it. But this is really helping out Brady Myers, who now has a 1.5 second advantage as they come over the line for lap number 3.
Yep, absolutely. He has been able to check out, but McMillan is looking very racy, almost getting into the back of Jake Burton under brakes here. McMillan definitely has a lot of pace. In the 23 car, very lucky to actually make top split, one of the very last few cars to make it happen, but at the moment having a fantastic race and looks to get a big I-rating boost regardless of where he finishes if he can hold in this top 3 slot. But right now, all he cares about is P number 2 held by Jake Burton, and it will be continued to be held by Jake Burton, who gets a nice run through T number 2. So we'll see if that continues. But one driver who did make an overtake is Brett Loxton, who got down the inside of Michael Taliancic. So Taliancic down 1 spot, Brett Loxton up 1. So Loxton, you know, he's had such a fantastic season where he's really broken out as a driver who was outside the top 10 to one that is constantly fighting in the top 10, and it's almost become a shock if he isn't fighting in the top few spots, Zach.
Yeah, Brett Loxton's really come alive in a sense this season in particular. Last season, I mean, he had a handful of showings up around the top 5 and inside the top 10, but definitely comparably this season he has been performing significantly better. And I mean, he seems to be one of the guys who's here week in, week out, always putting in the effort. So always good to see a few, you know, drivers who do put in that amount of effort, getting their just desserts. And for him, that's currently P number 7 inside the top 10. And if he can possibly break away from that little train there, and he's had the speed in the past to be on the back of Luke Harvey, so he might be able to work his way up there eventually. But he is coming under quite a bit of pressure there from Michael Taliancic, though I don't think Michael is going to quite be able to do anything this time round. And it'll be interesting to see as well, Michael Taliancic further up the grid this time round than possibly on other occasions we've seen him. He typically likes to extend his fuel window a little bit and run the extra lap. Given the tank size and how long this lap is, I'm not sure he'll be able to do that. So we'll see if he can make something work as well. That'll be interesting to see.
Yep. And meanwhile, Thomas Hins makes a move up the inside. Doesn't quite get the overlap done on Scott Larnack, but now they do, and they're going to go side by side up Mountain Straight. And Hinsey, you know, just getting back into sim racing, had a little bit of time off, really finding his feet once again, whereas Scott Larnack, you know, going in a new direction with sim racing, loves his Porsches, but now trying to get into the V8 Supercar a bit more, but squeezing Thomas Hins onto the grass into turn number 2 is not the way to get into V8 Supercars, and that just opens the door as easy as you like for Emily Jones to get the move done on Thomas Hins, and it might get a little bit worse than the Synergy sim racing car of Leon Tander around the outside. Contact made. How on earth has Leon Tander kept that out of the wall even more? And they're going to go up the hill once more, heading towards Reed Park, and this is not where you want to be side by side, and Leon rightfully backs out of it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really seen 2 cars go through there successfully. If you do, you're having a very, very lucky day. So good to see that those guys had the foresight to know that wasn't going to work. But we're just going to get a replay for you now of Wayne Burke, I believe. It's just had a bit of an overtake on Michael Taliancic there as he came up through the cutting. Very, very nice move there, just making sure that he was right on the inside and not taking no for an answer and barging his way through up past the Michael Taliancic. So fantastic move from Wayne Burke there. He's up 3 spots already from his starting position of 11th. Still got a little bit of work to get himself up into the podium slots or even possibly a win, but he's showing good pace right now, which is great. But yeah, this battle for the lead now, Jake Burton kind of holding pretty... in fact, he actually lost quite a bit of time that last time round, but that gap does seem to be hovering pretty much around the 1.5 second mark at this stage.
Yep, it was actually 2/10 in the favour of Jake Burton last time around, and he's managed to break away from Thomas McMillan just a little bit, who does appear to have just a tiny little bit of damage on the front left quarter panel of the All-Star Motorsports Commodore. So perhaps McMillan just found a wall somewhere, which is so easy to do around this concrete jungle that is Mount Panorama. And that's allowed Jake Burton to just get away from that battle pack and really put his head down and really focus on the back of Brady Myers' Progression Racing Australia car. And now we might have a battle for the lead potentially brewing. But we also have to keep an eye on the battle for pin number 3, because right behind McMillan is McMullen and Luke Harvey. And Luke Harvey, always a driver we have to keep an eye on, because he is always willing to throw up a different strategy or just go for outright pace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Luke's one of the most experienced guys in the field. Sorry, I just saw Jake Burton tap the wall there. He had a very big moment as he was coming up through Sulman Park there, and very lucky not to get absolutely sideways and lose it there. But yeah, Luke Harvey, I mean, he's got, you know, he's got the support of a great team who are very heavily involved in V8 Supercars behind him. But he's definitely one of the most experienced V8 Supercar drivers in this field tonight. And being one of the more mature drivers as well, you know, that also has its advantages in knowing where and when to push. And you can see right now, you know, we're 5 laps into this race and he's still within eyes reach of the lead, but he is just starting to pull back on Marlon McMullen now, and he might be thinking that soon, just before the pit stops start to open up, is when he might want to make his move and start moving his way forward.
Yeah, exactly, moving your way forward is what all these drivers have to think about. But slowly, bit by bit, we have to start thinking strategy as well. We're about to complete lap number 5. And this is what we would expect to be the halfway point in each driver's strategies, because the tyres will go off around this circuit quite heavily, and the pace drop-off will be dramatic. And it's going to be something that a lot of drivers have had to factor into their setup changes for this car, because, of course, a lighter fuel load, the car moves around a lot more than it would in perhaps a V8 Scops race with a full tank, but the tyres do go off just a little bit quicker because they can be so much more aggressive with setup. So we'll wait and see if anyone's willing to dive into the pits a little bit early. The only driver to do so far is Brenton Hobson, but of course he found himself in the wall, so he had much bigger issues to worry about, just rejoining behind the driver of Michael Abdoka. So Hobbo back in the race and trying to salvage some kind of result, and that'll be fantastic for him to try and get himself up the order, but 2 laps down is not going to be an easy task. But for these front 2 guys at the moment, the gap's still 1.5 seconds. Brady responding to the pace set by Burton last time around, but Brady is the pioneer, and at this point, you know, he is going to have to commit to the pit lane at some point in this race, and Jake Burton can afford to just see what Myers is doing, and he can react off that and get the advantage if he so wants.
Yeah, well, the first pit stop is always interesting. I mean, we even saw, I think it was at Watkins Glen, where we had another 2-stop race, and we saw Forzan El Nabi playing a bit of a different strategy, Wayne Burke playing a bit of a different strategy. I'm not sure that we'll be seeing as much of that tonight. I think and that's just probably due to the fact that the length of the circuit means that there's only a 1 to 2 lap window, I guess, where you're actually going to have enough fuel to pit and make it to the end as such. But I think that if anyone's going to have to think about when they're going to bite the bullet and do it, Brady's definitely going to have to think about it, but he does have another pit stop later on where he can obviously learn from his mistakes if he does decide that the first pit stop decision that he makes isn't the right one. Marlon McMullen now looking very racy on McMillan. We're going to get our tongues tied again as they come down into Murray's corner. McMullen going down the inside. McMillan, though, holding strong around the outside. He's going to get a nice run as they come down into turn number 1, Hell Corner. And McMullen has the preferred inside line, but he's going to have to go very shallow, and he's not going to have great exit speed, nor is he going to have the preferred line coming into turn number 3. And Luke Harvey now is going to pick up that draft from Thomas McMillan, and he's going to go flying by McMullen down the inside. Thinks he might even try and make it another one on McMillan there. I think that's a bit out of your reach, Luke, and I think he thinks so too, but very nicely done. Again, using an opportunity set up by another driver to make a move and get on through, so very nicely done. And now he's looking pretty good on the back of McMillan here, so he might try and get them both done in this one lap.
Yeah, well, he very well could, because of last time around, McMillan was on a 2:06.0, whereas Luke Harvey was an entire second quicker. So Luke Harvey's got the pace underneath him in that Trans-Tasman racing car right now. It's just a matter of finding the right opportunity, and one is coming up very, very soon. All he has to do is get the right line down this hill, which is so hard to do when you are right behind a car. But McMillan might make it a little bit easier, getting all kinds of out of shape over Skyline. Does hold it together though, keeps it in between the concrete walls. And Luke Harvey won't be able to make too much inroads at the moment, but he does have to get himself closer if he's going to have any chance down Conrad. But locking up, getting sideways on the rear brakes, not what you want to do. Any chance is gone. Might have even gave the wall just a little bit of a rub on the exit, and that might have cost him a little bit of straight line speed. And instead of attacking McMillan, he might have to worry about McMullen.
Yeah, I don't think that if he didn't touch the wall on the exit of Forest Elbow there, I don't think he could have come any closer. I think they're all probably going to stay the way they are as they come into the chase here. I don't think anyone's really got too much of an advantage that they can use that's sensible. So they've all gone through their single file, but it is starting to heat up, and you can see that Luke's just starting to kind of weave over the track a little bit, keep himself in the mirrors of McMillan, so that in the event that McMillan has a little bit of a mistake, as we saw earlier in that last lap coming up through Skyline, they're very, very close to losing control, and Luke just wants to keep applying that pressure. And it does sound as well like McMullen could be doing a bit of fuel saving here.
We have just had a car off. Brendan Jackson down the escape road at the final corner, was in a fantastic battle with Corey Preston, and they were exchanging positions all corners long, and unfortunately just went the wrong way around the corner, got a wheel on the grass and had to fire down the escape road. So that's extremely unfortunate there for the driver in the Velocity sim racing car, but no damage is done and he can continue on his way, just losing a bunch of spots unfortunately.
Yeah, it's always a shame, but at least he didn't smash into anything. He can get back out on the road and can continue on. But yeah, we were just having a bit of an onboard with McMullen before. It does seem like he is maybe just chilling out a little bit behind this little group here. He doesn't want to get too involved. He's obviously, I mean, he's very, very heavily tied up in this championship right now. And I don't think that, I think that with a couple of, you know, reasonably strong results, he doesn't have to go out and win races, but so long as he's finishing around in the top 5, I think that's probably going to be enough for McMillan. Obviously, we do have another round left, but McMullen, pardon me, for him to take out this championship. So he might just be sitting behind these guys, just cruising about. The guys up ahead of him, they're going for the win, they're going for the glory, but his glory will come in a couple of weeks when it's all said and done. So he might just, well, I mean, he could still be going for the win. He's just trying to do something different. But Luke Harvey now does have a much better run on McMillan. And I think looking at the way that he's pointing his car, looking like he might have had a little bit of a go down the inside there, but has decided not to. And now that they're only a lap or so away, as these two guys are on the pit lane, so Luke Harvey and Thomas McMillan have both come into the lane on the end of lap 8, beginning of lap 9, and both of those guys very aggressive on the pit entry there. Also Brett Luxton, and I wouldn't have picked it, Michael Taliantich is in the pit lane, as well as Cooper Webster and Thomas Hinds. Yeah,
a bit weird to see Taliantich actually doing a strategy that most people aren't doing, but we will turn our attention just while the pit stops are happening, and nothing is really happening until they do get off the jacks and fire away. But Brady Myers had a little bit of a mistake at the chase, locked the rear tyres and lost about 0.4 of a second. And that 0.4 of a second has allowed Jake Burton to get in the slipstream up Mountain Straight. And now this fight for the win is well and truly on. And that is going to be extremely important come the end of this race, as Luke Harvey in the pit stops has actually rejoined inside Thomas McMillan, which is extremely weird, but it was a very good pit stop time for Luke Harvey. He did almost get the overlap, but the straight line speed of McMillan might just be enough to keep him in front of the Trans-Tasman racing driver. So 0.4 of a second less fuel or something for Luke Harvey in the pit stop, which was a really good effort. And he actually had the same pit lane delta time as McMullen. So McMullen's fuel saving not quite getting the benefits he might have wanted, but nonetheless still going to have to push on later in the race. Actually, I'm looking for McMullen. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong driver. So McMullen has not pitted. I was looking at the wrong driver. I am a great commentator, love it. But nonetheless, it will be interesting to see if his fuel saving can get him ahead once these pit stops run hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of the cars are going to be coming in at the end of this lap or thereabouts. I don't think that many people will be extending out this fuel stop too heavily, especially given the amount of cars that have already pitted. So we have our leaders now coming into the pit lane. So Brady Myers, Jake Burton, they're both in. Marlon McMullen, is he going to stay out an extra lap? No, he's not. He's in the pits too. Wayne Burke, though, he's going to be the one to keep it out there and say, I'm going to run this thing as low as it can go, and I'm going to try and make a push towards the end of this race and try and take it all home. He's got some nice clear track out ahead of him, and actually I think of all the people to decide to do that, probably Wayne is the best candidate for that. So we will now look at the pit stops for our leaders. Jake Burton very, very closely behind Brady Myers as they came into the pit lane. Who is going to come out first? Going to have a look. Neither of these cars off the jacks yet. Waiting. They're both off at pretty much the same time. So I think that Brady might have even had a slightly quicker pit stop there than Jake Burton, and Luke Harvey in the background there, just going down the inside of Thomas McMillan. But they've got the car of Tim Weston, who's getting all up in their grill as well. That's actually going to be a bit of a disadvantage for Luke. He actually had to brake. Yeah, he had to brake. And that's going to allow McMullen to go down the inside at turn number 2. So McMullen taking advantage of that opportunity there as they just rub doors a little bit. As they come up the hill, Luke just getting a little bit sideways on the exit there. But McMullen has now gone through. Pretty unfortunate there for Luke Harvey, as that car of Tim Weston just getting in the way as they came out of the pits there. But that is racing, and he'll have to make that up. But yeah, looks like up at the front, they are still very, very close, but no changes in the pits.
No changes in this first round of pit stops, but the pit lane will still be a hive of activity a bit later in this race, because of course 10 lap stints and a 28 lap race here tonight at Mount Panorama, and still a few drivers yet to make their way into the pit lane, including Wayne Burke and Scott Larnack, who are definitely going to be two to see where they rejoin later in this field. But for now, Brady Myers is your effective race leader, and getting a little bit of a moment just happening down into Forest Elbow. Lucky to hold on to it. And once again, very early in the start of the stint, Brady Myers' car has fantastic pace, but just loses a little bit as the stint goes on if the first stint is anything to go off of. So we'll wait and see what Brady Myers can do. Did have one of the slowest pit stops in the entire field. Only Emily Jones and Corey Preston had longer pit stops. But as we would of course expect, our 3 cars on the leaderboard at the moment are into the pits now, and we're interested to see where they do rejoin. But Brady Myers will easily get past, as will Jake Burton, and it's going to be interesting to see just what these guys' lap times are at the moment, because new tyres, less fuel in the car than they might have had at the race start if they're going for a slightly alternative strategy. It's going to be interesting to see how these gaps fluctuate at the moment, Zach.
Yeah, I imagine they'll be slightly quicker than before they came into the pits, just because of the new tyres, but we have seen the pace dropping off within the first 2 to 3 laps after they come out. I'm just having a look now at Wayne Burke, who's just rejoined ahead of Lee Ellis and Kurt Stenberg there, and behind Cooper Webster. So about position number 10 for him. He'll have to keep on pushing. He's got a bit of an advantage towards the end of this stint though, given that he's got fresh tyres, and he might be able to run longer into the last stint as well. But yeah, a lot of the tyres starting to drop off fairly quickly in the stints. So I think the fastest lap we've had so far was from Brady Myers. His fastest lap was about 3 to 4 tenths faster than anyone else's. So if he can pull out a couple of those laps like his fastest lap, he will get a little bit of a lead over Jake Burton, and it might be enough to overcome those instabilities he's having in his car in the later parts of his stint.
Yeah, or he could even just change his driving style up just a little bit to try and nurse tyres. And if that is indeed what he's done, then he hasn't done it as well as he might have wanted, because Jake Burton is already beginning just to nip at the times a little bit and just close in.
Yeah, McMillan, sorry. McMillan just had a huge moment coming through the dipper. And actually, Luke Harvey and McMullen both got through there. McMillan just giving McMullen a little bit of a bump as they come out of the exit of Forest Elbow. And he's now got to have to drop back off McMullen there. But that was a huge moment as McMullen was coming down through the S's. He's got a little bit locked up on the rears, I think. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. But it looked like he just locked up the rears a little bit and was able to just pull it up in time to get himself through the dipper. And lucky he didn't end up in the fence there. Still not ideal to be losing 2 positions, but definitely better than not being able to finish the race at all. So he'll continue on and look to push past those guys. And Luke Harvey's in the pits. He must have gotten a speeding penalty or something, or maybe he didn't take fuel or
no, that's a speeding penalty. His lap times have not been counting. So that is a speeding penalty for Luke Harvey, who was effective P number 3. That is a nightmare for him.
Yeah, that's shocking. But, you know, if you want to win these races, you really have to... Oh, that's bizarre. He's just gone up on the jacks.
Could you stop and go?
Yeah, right. Maybe just getting a tyre change done while he's in there. That's a very bizarre situation. But nonetheless, if you do want to win one of these races, you've got to make sure that you dot every I and tick every T and make sure everything is good. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. And Luke Harvey is now coming out behind Brendan Jackson in P number 22. So he's got a long way to go, but we are going to take you back up the front where the battle is starting to brew ever so slightly, lap after lap. And Jake Burton is staring at the back of the car of Brady Myers and thinking, when are you going to make a mistake, and when can I not have a car in front of me? Because I really just want a great scenic view of this Bathurst track. I don't have to worry. I don't want to have to worry about anyone ahead of me. I think he's not quite close enough this time coming through Forest Elbow, but this battle's going to rage on for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Brady Myers' car is very quick over the top of the hill, but unfortunately for him, Jake Burton is just able to stay just close enough and keep the slipstream down the many straights we do have here at Mount Panorama. So Burton really making a really good effort at the moment to keep in the draft of Brady Myers, and he can save fuel here, which could mean he could get the pass done in the pit lane for the second round of pit stops, or he could try and prove a point on track. We know Jake Burton loves a fight. We know he loves an aggressive battle or two, so we'll wait and see what he decides. If he can get a little bit closer, last time around he was just ever so slightly 6,000ths of a second quicker than Brady Myers, so he is closing, but 6,000ths of a second just isn't quite enough.
Yeah, it's not going to get you up there in a hurry. I think he'd only have to do that about 100 times if he wanted to get past Brady Myers at that rate, but I'm sure that he'll be able to find a little bit more the time than that, at least hopefully, for the sake of all of us watching at home, so we can have a little bit more of a battle going on. There are some other battles raging on in your fields, just nothing quite super spicy. We've got Thomas McMillan. He's battling a little bit with Brett Loxton, pardon me. They're nose to tail, and they're followed very closely by the teammates of Michael Taliancic and Cooper Webster, and those guys are very, very close to each other as well. And Michael doing a good job to be up just behind the cars of McMillan and Loxton. And if he plays his strategy right, he might be able to do a little better. But Brady Myers has just had a little bit of a moment coming up the top of the hill, which is where he has been so strong. So it's now coming down the bottom of the hill, and Jake Burton is a little bit closer than he has been previous times round. Jake opting for a little bit of a wider entry into that corner, which will give him a much nicer exit down the straight. And it looks like, once again, he is fairly close, but I just don't think that half a second is quite enough to have anything productive happening for you by the time you get down into the chase. And as we can see here, he might even just start to back out of it slightly and save a little bit of fuel, knowing that he's not going to make that. And they do stay as they are, and the gap is remaining very much the same. But we've also got Lee Ellis and Wayne Burke further back in the field who are also having a little bit of a scrap since they came out of the pits as well. So a couple little duos hanging around and having a little bit of a battle, but everything relatively settled in the field at the moment.
Settled for most drivers, but unfortunately not for Italians. Just a little bit of a moment over the top of Skyline, and very lucky to keep it out of the wall, and did only lose one position to his teammate Cooper Webster. But nonetheless, we will return to this fight up at the front, because Jake Burton is right under the rear wing of Brady Myers and just lurking a little bit, just moving in the mirrors a little bit of Brady Myers, just trying to unsettle him into one of the hardest braking on the entire circuit. You can see there, Brady Myers not looking too content on the exit there, lighting up the rear tires ever so slightly, makes the apex with the cutting, no, but doesn't get the exit, and there we go. But meanwhile, we do have Thomas McMillan out of the race. McMillan is out of the race, and that was done all on his own, blown the engine, and just decided to roll it into the wall. So unfortunately, McPleb has had an incident, and his day is done from what was looking like a very competitive 4th or even 3rd place finish.
Yeah, unfortunately, these V8 supercars don't have any kind of, well, reverse rev limiting, I guess. You can just pull the gears as often as you like, and looks like he's pulled one too many there, and the engine has locked up and said, I can't deal with that, thank you, I'm out of here. And so is McMillan, which is a shame because he was up sitting in P number 4, and that's going to elevate Brett Loxton up into P number 4, and that'll be a very good result for him. Got a little bit down the road to McMullen, and McMullen now has a monstrous gap between himself and the car of Jake Burton further down the road. 9 seconds the gap between 2nd and 3rd now, and behind that, not too much worse, but just a little bit more spread out. But yeah, Jake Burton is still very much on the back of Brady Myers and looking for a way past that number 6 car, but Brady doing a good job to hold on. I think might be struggling a little bit, but if you can keep that car behind you for the next 13 odd laps, whatever works, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just hearing for McMillan, he was having a little bit of issues with his game, which was causing the game to go into slow motion, and he couldn't quite time the revs as much as he would have liked. So unfortunately, that's how McMillan's day has ended. But Jake Burton's night is just getting started. He is hounding the back of Brady Myers right now. It is not letting Myers breathe for even a second around this circuit. Just pulling out there, heading to the cutting, just trying to unsettle him. He's applying maximum pressure, and I said earlier in this race that he could potentially just stay in the rear, under the rear wing of Brady Myers and try and save fuel. I think his intent is to pass, and pass very, very soon, Zach.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been waiting a long time. He's been sitting on the back of that car for the last 15 odd laps, and he's been edging closer and closer and closer as they tick down. And it does seem like these cars are very strong in different areas, though, and I think that could be one of the main downfalls for Jake here, is that Brady's very, very good down the mountain, and the main opportunity that you're going to get is in that draft down Conrad Straight, down into the chase, and he just hasn't been able to be there, Jake Burton, coming down through Forest Elbow. He just hasn't had the speed coming down the hill to be able to actually be close enough and make a move work by the time they get down into the chase. So he really does have to try and find another way to get past, and if that's the only way that he thinks that he can get past is coming down into the chase here, that he's going to have to change the way that he drives up and down the mountain, because what he's doing at the moment isn't quite working, and the tires are starting to fall away. We are seeing now the lap times are already about 0.6 to 0.7 off they were when they first came out on these tires. So both using the tires quite extensively, and they're not going to get any better until they come back into the pits. So maybe he'll have to do it in the pits. Maybe he can try a bit of strategy, but he's going to have to make something. He's going to have to change something a little bit if he wants that to work through the chase there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe just getting a much better exit and hoping that Brady Myers doesn't get the best of his. Meanwhile, we do have Luke Harvey on a recovery drive trying to make some positions back through the field. Recently got past Dominic Sawicki, but Dominic was instantly looking to try and get back past, but could not do anything into the chase. So Luke Harvey continuing to fight on, and he's going to be one to watch, because still will have one more pit stop to make like the rest of the field, even though he will have technically done 3 unfortunately for him. But he'll be interesting to watch just to see how high he can potentially get up the field. His next target will be Greg Sharp, and Sharp is really trying to apply some pressure at the moment to Leon Tander. So if Harvey's going to make his way through the field, he's got a couple of battles to work his way through first.
Yeah, he sure does. Luke Harvey and Greg Sharp used to be pretty good teammates. I think they still probably chat to each other from time to time. So hopefully there'll be, hopefully no friendships will be broken up as Luke Harvey is trying to come through the field. But he does have that car of Greg Sharp and also the SSR car of Leon Tander, who's very slow and has actually just let Greg Sharp through there as they come into the cutting. Also just gotten word that had an issue with Corey Preston,
that is a crash.
He's had a big crash as he's coming up the hill. Wow! Oh my God! Wow! Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not something that you see every day. Corey has apparently bought shares in the Australian space program. Obviously,
Welcome to V8 Online.
Yeah, obviously the Australian government has been testing some experimental parts in Corey Preston's Ford Falcon there. So all the best on your future space endeavours there, Corey. Shame to see you out of the race. I'm sure we'll see you for the next one. But Luke Harvey now has made his way past the car of Leon Tander and is getting a bit of a run on Greg Sharp. Might have a bit of a move coming into the chase given the speed differences that have been shown all throughout this race. Luke Harvey goes in deep. He's going to go down the inside. Not quite. He's going to pull it back in. And just saying g'day to his old mate Sharpie there. And we'll now move forward up the field to Brett Loxton, who's just having a bit of trouble there with Cooper Webster going up the inside at turn number 2. Very nicely done by Cooper Webster there. And Loxton now in an awkward position where he's sandwiched in between two teammates. And he's going to either want to get that spot back from Cooper Webster very quickly or hope that the pit window opens up very soon so that he can dive in and get out of here.
Yep, well, we have had a driver who did give us a bit of information just before this race started, and he said if you're willing to stretch the fuel out, you could make it 11 laps to the finish, and we are about to start out with just 11 laps to go in this race, so there is possibilities open for Brett Loxton if he's willing to fuel save, but I think the smart call for most drivers will be to run it out to 10 laps to go, pit on lap number 18, and make your way through the field that way. But we'll have to wait and see, because there are always drivers willing to throw the dice a little bit and really gamble on something. And one of those drivers who was just behind Brett Loxton is Michael Talyancic. We've always seen him do an alternate strategy, always do something a bit left field to what most drivers do. He didn't do it in the first stint, but there is 2 pit stops here tonight, Zach, and maybe this is his time to roll the dice.
Yeah, I almost want to make some really outrageous bet, because I'm just so convinced that Michael Talyancic is going to be in this lap. I just feel it. He's going to run to the very end. He's one of the, if there's any driver in this field right now who you could say who can get to the end of the race on the least amount of fuel, you'd have to say quite safely Michael Talyancic. He's always trying to push it, and it's a good thing I didn't make an outrageous bet, because he actually hasn't come into the pits this time round. So no doubt we'll be seeing him come in as they circulate through next time. But yeah, I think with the amount of fuel that they have left, I think, and from what we've seen throughout this season, usually at the second stop, guys do like to come in as early as they possibly can. And that's to avoid anyone behind getting the undercut and possibly overtaking them while they're in the pits when someone else is out on fresh tires and going absolutely bananas. So I suspect that quite a few drivers will come in this time around, but being commentators and all, we're probably going to be completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luke Harvey isn't having much luck either, as he's been having quite an interesting race at the moment. Almost put it in the fence last time around, but nonetheless still continuing on his way back through the field. And one little battle that was just shaping up just a little bit was between the 2 Trans-Tasman racing drivers, Kurt Stenberg and Lee Ellis. On that last time around, they were getting extremely close into turn number 2 and almost got into one another. So the 2 TTR teammates, definitely no team orders here, and they're fighting each other very, very hard right now. But it looks like Lee Ellis has just managed to pull a little bit of a gap at the moment, And he's in a bit of an interesting strategy at the moment because he is the highest placed car at the moment, and with the youngest tyres as well. He's only got 7 laps on his tyres, whereas our race leaders are about to start their 9th, and the guys like Brett Loxton and Michael Taliancic, they're on 10-lap-old tyres at this point.
Yeah, and they'll be absolutely screaming to get off of those things, I imagine. Now, we do have the 2 leaders coming past the pit lane this time round, and sure enough, Brady Myers and Jake Burton come into the pits. So, who's been saving fuel? I bet Jake Burton probably has more than Brady Myers. Has he saved enough to undercut his pit stop and take less fuel and try and get out ahead of the PRA car of Brady Myers? We will see very shortly. A bunch of other cars now coming onto the lane. McMullen, Webster, Loxton, Taliancic, Burke, Stenberg staying out, Ellis coming in, Larnack on the lane as well. Emily Jones will decide to go around another time. Hinz coming in, Janssen stays out. So a couple of drivers opting for a different strategy here, and that should have been enough time to fill for our leaders to come down off the Jackson. Brady Myers does retain his lead as they come out of the pits for the final time, and he does have a little bit of traffic ahead of him. So this could be very critical right now for these 2 drivers. Steve Janssen up just slightly ahead of them. Emily Jones probably too far up the road to really worry about. But yeah, Steve Janssen could really play into this battle of Myers and Burton if he's not able to pick up the pace and keep it ahead of these leaders for long.
Yeah, well, the issue for Janssen is that his tyres aren't exactly the newest on this field. And last time around, he was only doing a 206.7, which is still much quicker than I could ever possibly manage in a V8 Supercar around here. Before our race leaders, our aliens, it's just not quick enough. And you can see that Brady Myers has already arrived under the rear wing of the CMR racing car. So for Myers, this is race critical. He needs to make sure that he gets past Janssen down Conrad Straight, and if he can and Burton can't, then this could be a complete race changer. Oh, that's his engine! Was that his engine? Brady Myers has blown his engine, and this has handed the victory potentially to Jake Burton, who will go on to be in the race lead as Brady Myers coasts downhill. Engine gone, revs dead. Progression Racing Australia left to the pit lane disappointed.
That's one of the saddest sights I've seen in a long time. Just going on board with Brady Myers now, and yeah, he was pretty high in the rev range in 3rd from what I can see when he decided to shift down to 2nd, and yeah, that thing has let go big time. No RPM, nothing. That thing is hydrolocked, and he is not going to be going well, he's probably going to make it. He might be able to make it back to the pits, but I don't think that his mechanics are going to be able to fix an issue like that before the race is done. So Jake Burton now has a 9-second advantage over Marlon McMullen, and surely he will have an easy run to the end, relatively unchallenged, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, the big thing that we have to think about here is for Marlon McMullen, his championship rival is Kurt Stenberg, who is currently in the pit lane and only just coming off the jacks now. So we'll wait and quickly see where Kurt Stenberg does rejoin. Looks like it will be ahead of Lee Ellis. So a good jump there for Kurt Stenberg in the pit lanes to well and truly jump his Trans-Tasman Racing teammate. But for Marlon McMullen, this 2nd place could potentially be what seals the championship for him. Stenberg is his main rival. He has a healthy lead at the moment, and this could be the race where the lead just becomes a little bit unattainable for the driver of Kurt Stenberg. But there is a fantastic battle happening at the moment. Michael Taliancic is just ahead of it, trying to run away from a battle pack which includes Wayne Burke, Cooper Webster, and Brett Loxton, and all these drivers, new tyres, ready to go to the end. This could be one heck of a showdown, Zach.
Yeah, these guys are all pushing very, very hard, and Brett Loxton has been looking very, very quick, and being at the back of this train, I imagine that he's going to want to try and get past these guys again. Obviously wasn't showing super great pace towards the end of his last stint, but he's got these 3 guys battling up ahead of him now, Taliancic, Burke, and Webster, and if they get into it, Loxton could be the guy to really get nice dividends out of a bit of a transaction there. But all these guys have been looking very, very good all race, and all their qualifying times within a couple of tenths of each other. Wayne Burke just getting a little bit squirrely on the exit of Forest Elbow there, but yeah, Loxton's got it all to win, but he's just got to keep on the tail of these guys and hope that none of them really make mistakes. I've got to say, a lot of drivers tonight have not been making mistakes, been really, really consistent, as Wayne Burke just having a little bit of a look, but Michael Taliancic comes across the track a little bit and says, I don't want you to go down there, and blocks off that lane. But Wayne's now going to try and possibly go down the inside into the final corner, and he will go nice and deep. Take a little... Oh, there's contact between the teammates. Webster hits Taliancic, and Brett Loxton goes through on Taliancic. Can't quite get through on Webster, but that's what we were talking about. Those guys getting together and Loxton taking advantage, and that's going to work really well for Wayne Burke. He can now stretch his legs a little bit and try and get away from those guys so that he's not hounded anymore. Now, Luke Harvey is up there back in position number 3. Unfortunately, Luke does have another pit stop to make. So Wayne Burke, up starting in 10th position, 11th position even, is now looking at a podium finish.
What a drive through the field it has been for Wayne Burke. We did say in qualifying a bit further back than we would perhaps expect him to see, and he has well and truly proven that, getting himself into an effective P number 3 and already pulling away rapidly from Cooper Webster, who does have a tiny bit of damage to the front splitter from that contact he had with his teammate. And Brett Loxton won't perhaps know that too much, but he will be able to capitalize it down the main straight if he can stay close enough. So for Brett Loxton, who's having a good drive through the field as well, we'll wait and see what he can do. But nonetheless, Kurt Stenberg closing in rapidly on Michael Taliancic at the moment as well. So more battles starting to descend here at Mount Panorama as Emily Jones goes through the grass, lucky to keep it out of the wall as well. So drivers already struggling a little bit. Perhaps, you know, it's a longer race than we would perhaps normally have in this official series, already clocking over 46 minutes in the race. You know, perhaps these drivers are just beginning to lose focus a little bit and just letting mistakes slowly creep in.
Yeah, well, it's very hard. The concentration level's got to be so high at this circuit all the time because, I mean, I'm sure you know, Bo, and I know very well, the most insignificant mistake can be absolutely catastrophic. And when you've been going around this track for the last 21 laps and 45 minutes and you've only got a handful left to go, the last thing that you want is to be touching a wall and having it all come to an end, or pulling a gear too early and blowing your engine or something like that. So, and those are all mistakes that can happen just with the most insignificant drop in concentration. So those guys will have to keep it up, but it is very difficult, especially, I mean, there are a couple of spots on this track. This section is one of them, kind of towards the end of the lap and the beginning of the lap. It's kind of cruisy. You've got 3 straights where you can have a little bit of time to think and regroup your mind and get it all going before you start here. As we watch Michael Taliancic now coming up through turn number 2, Griffin's Bend into the cutting. And this is where it all starts to get pretty crazy. You have to make sure the traction is absolutely optimal coming up this hill here, coming in up through Reed Park, and you want to come with as much velocity as you can through here into Sulman Park and riding the walls as close as you dare all the way around, clipping the inside curb there. These walls are really, really edgy as well. They're very easy to get into. Can't take too much curb here or you go into the wall at Brock Skyline, and brakes here in Brock Skyline, so difficult. I cannot even begin to tell you how hard it is to get through there every lap without crashing. Michael Taliancic, though, doing a good job and coming into the final little technical section across the top of the hill here through Forest Elbow, and now you can start relaxing again because mountains behind you, and you've only really got 2 corners until the left of the lap, and you can have a bit of a regroup and a think. But as you can see from them going over the top of the mountain there, there's so much going on, so many things you need to look at and think about, and one tiny mistake, it can all be over within a matter of moments.
Absolutely. One concrete wall around here is enough to end your day, so 1 lapse in concentration is more than enough to say your day is done. And that Conrod Straight is definitely a very welcome addition to the circuit, because without it, these drivers would be so fatigued and it would be very difficult to perform races like Bathurst 1000 or the Bathurst 12-hour in the GT cars with the concentration levels around here. But Taliancic makes it around for another lap. And these drivers definitely going to have earned their I-rating points if they've made a gain here today after 28 impossibly grueling laps here at this circuit. And it's fantastic to see that there are still so many cars still circulating on track, because we have seen these races in the past at Bathurst claim a lot of casualties. And as it stands, we only have 4 retirements, so still great to see so many guys still running on circuit. But the race leader at the moment is Jake Burton, who is holding the pace as easily as you like ahead of Marlon McMullen, who again has a nice lead over Wayne Burke, who does have Cooper Webster slowly breathing down his neck, as Webster was a 10th of a second quicker last time around. So Wayne Burke can't afford to have any mistakes at the moment. So this battle for P number 3 is the one to watch at the moment, as actually it's another classic case of Wayne Burke doing a 2:05.3 with Webster 1/10 quicker, and then Loxton behind 1/10 of a second quicker than Webster ahead. So all 3 of these guys just slowly converging on each other last time around, Zach.
Yeah, and with only a handful of laps left, I mean, they're going to be probably putting it all on the line, and they are starting to spread out a little bit. Loxton's still looking pretty good up in there behind Webster though, and Kurt Stenberg also trying to edge himself closer towards Michael Taliancic. But what we might do now is we might take you on board for a lap with Brett Loxton in the Kenny's Rural Fencing Ford Holden Commodore, pardon me. And we're going to shut up for a couple of minutes and let Brett do the talking and take you around this fantastic Mount Panorama circuit. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very nice lap there from Brett Loxton, trying to chase down the car ahead of him of Cooper Webster and Wayne Burke, who is the final spot on the podium right now. The 2:05.7 for Brett Loxton as they went over the line. And he unfortunately was the slowest out of the trio, but may be able to pick up some pace in the last 3 laps of this race. But as it looks right now, Jake Burton has a very, very healthy lead over Marlon McMullen and Wayne Burke. And there are a couple of other little battles happening throughout the field, but it has been pretty settled for the last while. Kurt Stenberg getting closer and closer to Michael Taliancic, and that could be on within the next lap or 2. And Scott Larnock edging up on Lee Ellis as well. So still a couple of positions to be fought for before this one's out.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those battles that is happening is Andrew Zackerson who was coming under a lot of pressure from Brendan Jackson, who Jackson is a little bit further down the order than what he would have liked, of course. Had to go down the escape road a little bit earlier in this race when fighting for position. Fighting for position once again. This time he has Zackerson and Evdoka. And Evdoka has no straight line speed. So that's going to be the driver of Zackerson trying around the outside, but falls back in line. And these drivers have been fighting very, very hard over the last few laps. In fact, into the chase, it was a fantastic move from Evdoka to actually hold onto that position, lost it down Conrod, but did make it back under braking into the chase. So Evdoka definitely has a lot of confidence at the moment in the braking performance of his car, but Zackerson just has the straight line speed, and Jackson, we know how quick he can be around this circuit, just not able to use it, stuck underneath the rear wing at the moment.
Yeah, well, experience counts for a lot until you are met with a roadblock in front of you, and then you really, really have to use every little bit of knowledge that you have to try and get past. And Brendan Jackson does have 2 cars ahead of him, which are making themselves quite wide at the moment, and they have been battling away as well. Andrew Zackerson just locking up a little bit as they came down into the dipper there, but managing to keep it all moving forward and getting a nice run through Forest Elbow. So I think we'll have a little bit of a move on here. We could even see these guys possibly going, dare I say it, 3 wide down Conrod Straight. It may not happen, but the way it's lining up right now, I wouldn't put it past him. They're 2 wide right now, and Michael Evdoka in the back there, he's going to try and make it 3 wide as they come through the chase. And Brendan Jackson, pardon me, that was, and Brendan actually getting past Michael, being the big loser there, losing 2 positions to Zackerson and Jackson. It's a good job there by those guys, and Jackson having a little bit of a look on the outside into Murray's corner. It's going to go for the over-under, turn in late and get some nice exit speed. Comes in and has the preferred line into turn 2. He's not going to have the exit speed that he would like coming down this first main straight here, but does he have more horses under his bonnet in that Holden Commodore than he does of Zackerson in his Ford Falcon? The Falcon is starting to edge away ever so slightly, and Zackerson does have a much more preferred line into turn number 1. And Jackson just going to have to brake a little earlier there and reserve himself back into 15th position. Look for another opportunity, maybe up into the cutting. I don't think so, Jackson. I think you're going to have to try somewhere else. But yeah, nice little battle here brewing towards the back of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a new contender in that fight, because Greg Sharp did get past Evdoka, who made a little bit of an error into the final corner, and Sharp was just able to dive underneath and get that position done. So with 2.5 laps to go, Sharp could potentially find himself in P number 14 if these guys do start scrapping away a little bit more.
And Hinz, pardon me, Bo, Thomas Hinz has had a huge moment in Skyline, and it looks like he just got a little bit sideways on the exit there. The bump, the exit curb just turned the car as he was coming off the corner there, and he's gone hard into the wall a couple of times there. Looks like he'll be able to continue on, but oh no, he's had a second incident and he has had to exit the car. So as we said, you can be going around here the whole time, and one tiny mistake like that is all that it takes to put you out of this. But we're going to take you up now to Lee Ellis and Scott Larnack. They're battling, and Larnack has been on the back of Ellis for the last couple of laps, looking for a way past. He's going to try go around the outside this time. Looks like he's got some nice speed coming down the straight. It's going to be hard to go around the outside unless he can go very hard under brakes, or Ellis has to concede. He does it a little squirrely from Ellis. He's going to run a little wide. Larnack opting to take a wider entry and not go 2x2 through there. He's going to have a nice run, go around the outside into the cutting. That's not going to work either, just having to tuck in. So just forcing Lee Ellis into all these lines that he doesn't really want to be taking, and hoping that an opportunity will open up for him. Maybe if he puts Ellis on a different line that Ellis is unsure of, he makes a mistake on there, Larnack can get through. That's what it's all about. So Larnack doing a very nice job of putting Ellis in spots on the track that he doesn't want to be, but not paying off for him right this moment. Just had to drop off a little bit after making that move into the cutting there. Might be able to do something as they're coming down the hill after Forest Elbow.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see if there is enough straight line speed in that unmarked Commodore to get past the Trans-Tasman racing driver, but I think he's a little bit too far back now. We know that Lee Ellis does know this V8 Supercar extremely well, And of course has an incredibly amazing helmet design as well with those eyes on the visor. Looks incredible, but nonetheless will get through as Kurt Stenberg now finds himself side by side with Talyancic into the chase. Not where you want to be, but around the outside, so late on the brakes. Does almost get it pulled up, not quite though, and that gives the run to Talyancic on the exit, but a little bit of a moment. Lighting up the rear tyres, can't do much with it, but will he try anything into the final corner? Too far back. So Kurt Stenberg does wrestle 6th place away from Michael Talyancic, but there is still 1 lap to go around the Mount Panorama circuit. So Talyancic, if he has anything left in the tyres, anything left in himself, he could get himself back past Stenberg, but Stenberg looks like he's already beginning to pull away, and we'll wait and see if Talyancic can respond in the last half of the lap, Zach.
Yeah, and it also looks like Larnack has probably not so much given up, but it looks like he's out of reach of Lee Ellis. And Scott Larnack actually had a extraordinarily slow lap that last time round, a 2:08.8, and he's got Emily Jones behind him doing 2:05.9. So if Scott's not careful, maybe he's doing a bit of fuel saving there. Maybe he has to do a little bit to get himself to the end. He could have Emily Jones and Steve Jansen on the back of him. And tell you what, Luke Harvey's done a fantastic job to get himself back up into 12th position from where he was. Outstanding job there. And the battle rages on for P number 13, 14, and 15. Greg Sharp going side by side with Brendan Jackson into turn number 2. Jackson has the inside corner, looks like, and he gets that job done. Sharp just having to run a little wide as they come out of that final, they come out of the second corner there, pardon me. But the man who has had luck on his side today after putting in a fantastic attacking performance and trying to get through on Brady Myers, eventually succumbing to the pressure, blowing his engine. Jake Burton wins at Bathurst in the iRacing V8 Supercars official series. Well done to Jake and to his team at TTR. Marlon McMullen with a very, very strong finish in second as he does a little bit of a drift as he comes over the line because he's feeling very good about that and feeling very good about where he sits in the championship right now. Could that be job done here and now? We will have to find out and get back to you before the next race. Wayne Burke comes across for P number 3. Fantastic drive from him. And Brett Loxton comes home behind Cooper Webster to round out the top 5.
Yep, so these guys were all fighting ever so hard to get whatever positions they could over one another. And we've actually had Michael F. Docker actually running out of fuel, so he is going to be losing a bunch of spots on this last lap, having to do maximum coast. But look at Brendan Jackson trying it into the chase. Could not quite do it, but tries around the outside. Is there going to be anything left? Can't quite do it. A little bit of contact pushes him off. And unfortunately, that could be a lot of positions lost there for the driver Andrew Zackerson. But look at Greg Sharp just trying to think about a move into the final corner. Can't do anything. So the fight for P number 13 does go to Brendan Jackson after a very, very forceful race. And it's not over yet as Sawicki is under a lot of pressure from Tander. Again, Sawicki just about holds on at the line. And it looks like F. Docker will just about coast the finish line. And Tim Weston a little bit far back, so might not be able to make anything happen with that.
Yeah, Jackson, that was a fantastic move around the outside in the chase there. That was excellent work. And I think there was a tiny bit of net code there, which is what sent Zackerson off. So it looks like both of those guys actually did give each other a really nice, respectful amount of racing room. Just unfortunately, the servers had a little bit of interference there, and Zackerson just got touched off the road ever so slightly. But these races at Bathurst never disappoint. A little bit of a shame to see one of the top contenders, or the leader of the race even, blowing his engine, and us not having much of a finisher in that regard. But a lot of really fantastic results throughout that race. So we will take you through our results now. Jake Burton is your winner. Followed up behind with Marlon McMullen, and Wayne Burke will take out your final position on the podium. Cooper Webster coming home for a strong result in 4th, and Brett Loxton having an excellent finish up in P number 5. Kurt Stenberg did well from 10th up into 6th. Michael Talyancic falling back a little bit. Maybe you should have stuck with your long-time strategies, Michael. got demoted from 5th down into 7th. Lee Ellis finishing in 8th. Scott Larnack in 9th. And Emily Jones routes out the top 10.
Steve Jansen brings himself home in P number 11 with Luke Harvey on a recovery drive up in P number 12. Brendan Jackson would come out on top for the battle for P number 13 in the end, only narrowly though ahead of Greg Sharp. And Andrew Zackerson was in 13th for the last lap, but did get a shove with just 2 corners to go. Dominic Sawicki comes home in P number 16, Leon Tander in 17, and an interesting story for P number 18 and 19. Evdoka, we saw him running out of fuel, attempted to shortcut the final corner in an effort to hold on to the 18th place, actually got a massive slowdown penalty, and when he crossed the line with that, did get himself penalised, and Weston will easily jump him by 34 seconds with that penalty for Evdoka. So shortcutting will never get you ahead, unfortunately, Evdoka, and he finds himself losing that spot he tried so hard to hold on to, whereas Thomas Hinz will come home in P number 20 after an unfortunate disaster in the last few laps, and then the heartbreak for Brady Myers, the space exploration for Corey Preston, the blown engine for Macmillan, and the race that was never ever off to a good start for Brenton Hobson in P number 24.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Hobbo. You usually see him up in around P number 6. So, yeah, very much a shame to see him out so early. And 2 blown engines as well in one race is a little odd to see. But, you know, it happens from time to time. And especially with these V8 supercars not having any rev catching devices on them, can be very easy to do. I know I've done it once or twice here and there. But do we have anything good coming up on V8s Online this week, Bo?
We absolutely do, and if there is going to be any series we want to have on the weekend, it is probably one of the biggest series we possibly could ever broadcast. It's the V8 Supercars Online Premier Series, and it is going to be kicking off at the Oran Park circuit. Last round was an absolute thriller that went right down to the final lap. So if you don't want to miss out on that again, be sure to watch on the Oran Park round, which is going to be happening on Sunday night. Of course, we have all the live timing for the pre-qualifying as well throughout the week on our Facebook page as well. So be sure to look out for that. And then, of course, it returns for Monday night V8 Supercars Strength of Field. Marlon McMullen has got himself into a fantastic position for this championship, but will he be able to wrap it up? It's Oran Park for the finale, but from us here at V8 Online, on behalf of myself and Zach and Jay in the director's booth, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Sunday.